Okay, so it is Monday afternoon. So games start. Well, it's Labor Day, but games start Thursday. So we're getting close. Like 72 hours till a game. Um, we're on my number 10 team, so we're getting there. We're starting to get into the high numbers. So number 10 team. Um, this one is Mackenzie. This is Waffle Rockets. I don't know if he'll feel great about the grade, but this is just how it's going to be. So here we kind of go. So 22 overall nomination, $77, Derrick Henry. So I love me some Derrick Henry. He is tremendous. I had him last year for the first time. I've always been a fan of his. Seeing him in Baltimore as a Steelers fan hurts my heart, but I always knew that even when I saw him in Tennessee, I knew he had that Hall of Fame talent, and he's just making good on it. He is the epitome of the exception. So he led all running backs in touchdowns rushing last year with 16. He was fourth in carries, rush yards, carries within the 5-yard line, and fantasy points. So as Saquon had 2,000 yards, basically it's kind of funny because I had Jordan Mason, so I was tracking this. So for half a season, Jordan Mason was the rushing leader. For a quarter of the season after that, Derrick Henry was the rushing leader. And then on the back half, it was Saquon Barkley. So what ended up happening is Saquon had 2,000 yards. Henry had 1,921 yards. So not all that far off. Him and Saquon were going back and forth for the rushing lead in the back half of the season. So he has been a top 10 running back in yards and touchdowns 7 years in a row, going back to his time, obviously, in Tennessee. Though he's not a great receiver. I don't think he broke 20 receptions last year. They just don't use him that much. He's 31 years old, so usually you would say, in running back terms, the average age curve of a running back is their beginning of their peak, is like 25. It's very early, usually 3 or 4 seasons into their career. Now, it usually extends to like 28-ish, so you get like 3 years of like quality play, 3 or 4 years, and then it just kind of shoots. Once they hit 30, just boom. A good example of this is like Le'Veon Bell, Leonard Fournette. They hit 30 and just fall off the cliff. Henry is the exception. So he's 31 years old now. Last year was year 30. People were all very afraid of that. And, he was top 3 in yards per carry and yards after contact. So, no, he did not slow down. He is on a Hall of Fame track. If things keep up, he's 31. So if he's averaging like 1,000 yards for the next 5 years, he'll be in the top 5 rushers all time, right around Frank Gore, Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, and Barry Sanders. So, elite company. This man is, again, he is the exception. So, why is Mac 10th, starting off with Derrick Henry? Well, I had Derrick Henry, and I really know a lot about Derrick Henry. I like Derrick Henry because he is very, very healthy. Despite being 31, the only real injury he's ever had was the year in Tennessee where they were basically running him. His production was like that of O.J. Simpson's 2,000-yard season. I didn't think he could keep it up, and he didn't. He broke his foot. Other than that, he hasn't really had very many injuries through his career. But because the Ravens don't really use him as a pass catcher, he doesn't see the field all that often. So he's only on the field for, I think last year was 63% of the offensive play calls, which is kind of low for a true bell count running back. They almost exclusively use him on first and second down. They don't really use him as a pass catcher on third down. So game script matters a lot to Derrick Henry. Like 2-minute drill, Derrick Henry's not out there. Third down, Derrick Henry's not out there. Third and long, Derrick Henry's not out there. So it's tough because you basically need him to do one of two things. You either need him to get his touchdowns, which I think he will do, or you need him to be hyper efficient, which he has been. But it's still, I think you paid for him at cost. I obviously like him, considering Bijan went for 90 and Saquon went for 85. I think Henry at 77 is like, I mean, it's a little overpay, but not much, not as much as them. So I just don't think he's going to have as big a season as he had last year, where he was just, him and Saquon were going back and forth, and I was watching the whole thing. I think this year you're only going to get 1,500 yards rushing, and I think you might get 150 yards receiving. Realistically, though, I think last year he had 18 touchdowns. I don't think you get 18, but because they use him near the goal line, you'll still get quite a bit. It's kind of like the difference between him and Saquon is, as much as Saquon is big play home run talent, they don't really use Saquon Barkley near the goal line. They use tush push and Jalen Hurts, whereas the Ravens are the opposite. They don't really use Lamar Jackson near the goal line. They feed Henry. So I think Henry's going to get like 16 touchdowns still. So an elite top 5 running back. We paid at cost. We know what he is. I like Derrick Henry. I think the Ravens have the best offense in the NFL. They are my Super Bowl favorite. I've said that, though, before, so we'll see if that comes true. They got to make it up in the playoffs at some point. But I really like Derrick Henry, despite all the warning signs. But then we're kind of get a little wonky. So, 24th nomination, $13, TJ Watt. Now, you'll notice in these draft videos, I almost never talk about defensive players. And the reason why I almost never talk about defensive players is it's very simple. The elite defensive players are really the only ones that make a huge difference, and the changes between those elite defensive players is constant turnover. A good example is Darius Leonard was an all-pro linebacker. He hurts his back. He's out of the league now. And that happened basically within 2 seasons. He literally all-pro his rookie year, signs a big contract extension year 2, gets hurt year 3, gets cut by the Colts in year 4, last year's year 5, now he's out of the league in year 6. That's a crazy set of events. So I just don't really, defensive linemen are usually the bankable stars in the actual NFL, but they're not as hugely important in fantasy because even if they're scoring double digits, you kind of know who the elite players are. I just don't really go into the IDP guys all that much. But I'm going to make the exception here in your video because I have a problem with it. So I like TJ Watt. Obviously, he's on the Steelers. He's tremendous. I think, for my money, Trey Hendrickson is a better pass rusher than TJ Watt. I would say Myles Garrett has more talent than TJ Watt. But I would say the highest motor is TJ Watt, and that is why he got his extension. Though, to be fair, quite a few defensive ends got their extensions this year. So Micah Parsons got got his extension. Obviously, I just mentioned Myles Garrett. Obviously, TJ Watt. We didn't even count Max Crosby. So the market for defensive end basically went up 20% this offseason, which is a huge, enormous leap. But the reason why I don't really like this is you spent $13 on TJ Watt. Obviously, I know you mentioned the draft. It was a mistake, so I get that. It's just, man, I have a hard time believing any defensive player in our league is worth $10. And so for you to just kind of pony up basically for, at these prices, what would be possibly 2 starting receivers for a defensive lineman, it was just very, very not fun, not super fun. So what you're going to need from Watt is last year he had 12 sacks. He had I think 6 forced fumbles. He was a very good player. You need him to be the number 1 defensive end. You need him to get a sack a game. You need him to get multiple turnovers for him to justify this. I don't know if he can do that. I mean, I love him, but I don't know if he can do that. That's asking a lot. Yeah, so I think he'll get his 60 tackles. I think he'll get double-digit sacks. I think he'll force at least 4 or 5 fumbles. But you're basically asking him to basically play at a level of Bruce Smith, if you know who that is. Or if you want to do more recent, Julius Peppers. You're asking a lot, and you paid a lot for that ask, and I do not like it. I do not agree with it. I'm not a fan of it. So, after that, 30th nomination, $29 on Ladd McConkey. So we're spending money now. Like, we wait till like 24. Now it's like 24. Well, actually, yeah. So we went 22, 24, now number 30. So 30 is Ladd McConkey. He obviously is of Chargers fame. He replaced Keenan Allen last year in the slot in LA, and funny enough, Keenan Allen is back. He had a very good rookie campaign. Not a Puka Nacua rookie campaign, but a good rookie campaign nonetheless. He was a top 20 among receivers in receptions, yards, touchdowns, catch rate, yards per target, yards per route run. He was a little up and down to begin, but I think he ended up being like the 12th best receiver on the season, if I remember correctly. So I also remember he had 5 or more catches like in 8 straight games to end the season. And yeah, I think he's gotten more help around him, but he's a quality wide receiver too. I think he'll get like 95 receptions. I think he'll get like 1,200 yards. I think he'll get like 6 touchdowns, and I think he'll be a very good player for what he is, which is, I think, one of the elite slot merchants. It's just kind of tough for me because you spent 29 on him, and he was the 30th, and then I just know in the back of my mind, 5 selections later was Brian Thomas Jr. for $27, and Thomas Jr. is like a back end wide receiver 1, and McConkey's like a solid number 2. So just a little tough. I think you paid for him at cost. I think he's a quality player. So I do like McConkey. That's not bad, like, starting point. Then we wait till the 45th nomination. We went in on $44 for Kyren Williams. I've said it before. I mentioned it in Sarah's video. But basically, the way I kind of looked at it was Sarah spent 46 on Bucky Irving. You spent 44 on Kyren Williams, and I spent 45 on James Cook, and I feel the worst about the 3. So I think getting Kyren at 44 was a steal. I think you knew it was a steal during the actual draft, especially because I mentioned in Leyland's video, Kyren's been one of the most healthy players in the NFL the last 2 years, and he also he's like tied for the most on running backs in the last 2 years by scoring 31 touchdowns. Like, just crazy numbers in the Sean McVay offense. It's as though he is the heir apparent to Todd Gurley, but he doesn't have Gurley's talent, at least prime Todd Gurley, like the speed, the acceleration, the vision. Kyren does not have the speed. He does not have the acceleration. He does have the vision, though. I'll give him credit. He's got good vision, and he's got maybe not the acceleration, but he's got some quickness. He's got some ability to kind of wiggle. So he's never going to be a top 5 or even top 10 most talented running back, but he's just very good at just being able to find room and find the right blocks and kind of weave his way through. So, yeah, he also, I had mentioned before with Derrick Henry was number 2 because Kyren Williams was number 1 with carries inside the opponent's 5-yard line. So he's a heavy goal line runner. Because McVay kind of treats him the way Shanahan treats McCaffrey. They're just the jack-of-all-trades kind of guys. Yeah, he's got an extremely high floor player. He's always healthy. He's always getting goal line touches. He's always getting the most carries out of the backfield. And it's a slight concern because he's had 610 carries in the last 2 years combined. But as I mentioned before, running back's prime is usually pretty early. It's 25. Guess how old Kyren Williams is? He's 25. So, yeah, I think he's a borderline running back 1. I think he's at least a $60 player. So getting him for 44 is a steal. I think he'll get like 1,300 yards again. I think he'll get like maybe not as many touchdowns. Like last year, he got 16. I mean, him and Henry are just touchdown merchants. So I think he'll get like 14, but that's still a lot. That's still a lot of touchdowns. I think he'll get like 36 receptions and maybe 200 yards receiving. So not as many. They don't use him as much as a receiver as they could just because they try to give him a break. But man, does he run the ball a lot. I'm going to put this. No matter the workload, so you give him a heavy workload, he's still slightly above average. And that really, really matters over like a long amount of carries. Because most guys, the more opportunities you give, the more their efficiency suffers. A good point is like Joe Mixon got a ton of opportunity last year. He only averaged 3 yards per carry. Now, granted, the Houston O-line was garbage, but he was just super inefficient, and they just gave him a ton of work. Kyren gets a ton of work, and he's relatively efficient. And that's what makes him so appealing to the Rams, is because he always stays healthy, and he's relatively efficient. Are there more talented players? Yeah, of course. Are there players who might be better fits for this scheme? Possibly, yeah. But combining his availability with him maximizing the gifts he has made him a quality starter. So I think getting him as your number 2 running back is terrific. I think getting him for 44 is even better. I am surprised Leyland let him go to chase the upside of McCaffrey, if I'm being quite frank. So, if I like 3 of the first 4 picks, why is McKenzie going as my 10th team? Well, we're getting there. So, $117, $2, JJ McCarthy. So you're another one of those teams. I would say the same thing about who is it? Caleb Williams is on Justin's team. I think I just did Stefan, so Stefan definitely has Drake May. Drake May is on Stefan's team, and then I know Brian took someone super. Yeah, Brian took Jordan Love. Who else? I think Sarah's got Justin Herbert. So there's like a ton of teams that were waiting on quarterback that just got like, yeah. You just got guys. I think J.J. McCarthy's like an guy. Like, he's a rookie. He's in Minnesota. We've seen what Sam Darnold has done. We've seen what Kirk Cousins has done. We're hoping McCarthy can do that. I just think it's asking a lot of him to do that when he's only been, this is year 2, but he's essentially a rookie because he was injured all of last year. I think he's in a QB-friendly scheme. I think Sam Darnold did have a great season because Justin Jefferson's there, T.J. Hawkinson's there, Jordan Addison's there, now Adam Thielen's there. And Darnold and Cousins have both had top 12 fantasy seasons the last 2 years in Minnesota. So McCarthy, even with no experience, obviously is a complete unknown. But I think because of all the weapons and how good McConnell's system, again, another McVay guy from L.A., will help him. I think he'll get like 4,000 yards passing. I think he'll get like high, like 28 to 30 touchdowns. He won't have much rushing. So we're talking like borderline top 10-ish quarterback, which for $2 is pretty good. It's just, always kind of hesitant with the unknown guys, the rookie guys, who don't rush all that much. And McCarthy doesn't rush all that much. So kind of just like, we're going in the unknown. I'm not really sure. Just going to have to trust the tape. I like McCarthy, but I would have preferred, like Bo Nix or even Justin Fields with his rushing. But getting him at his price, you can't beat that. But it's just, I don't know. I don't know what to expect from McCarthy. It's a little more of the unknown, which I guess we can do at quarterback. But again, we're starting to get kind of weird because 141 nominations, $2 for Mark Andrews. I had Mark Andrews last year. It was not a fun time. Yeah, he was like, what? He was the 8th ranked tight end. after he'd been like a top 5 tight end, like, I don't know, 5 years in a row, his target share dropped because Zay Flowers is there and they started to use Isaiah Likely more. He was like 20th in targets, 14th in catches, 9th in yards, but first in touchdowns because he had 11 touchdowns last season. But it just seemed to me he was super touchdown dependent to make up for the previous years. I mean, he didn't even break 700 yards receiving. So I felt like that's more of an outlier. And I'm not really sure if he's like even a flex, like a starting flex kind of guy anymore. Like he's maybe going to get like 600, 650 yards and probably like 6 or 7 touchdowns. But is that like a flex worthy option? Not really. He's not. It's just okay. Like he's okay. And I understand why I took him for $2. It's just going to be just basically because of Watt, essentially, and you spending so much, even if I like the McConkey pick, not trying to, like, save a little money on McConkey really, really hurts you on the back end, even with the savings that you got from Kyren Williams. So, I mean, the next one, 159 nomination, $4, Blake Corum, so running back out of Michigan, helped them win the national championship now 2 years ago. He is the backup to Kyren Williams, so I understand why we took him, just to protect ourselves. Hopefully he gets more touches than he did last year. I think he only touched the ball like 65 times, if I'm remembering correctly. I think he also was like the number 3 running back, and then he eventually had to beat out like Ronnie Rivers or somebody to be the number 2. But more than anything else, he's just essentially insurance on Kyren Williams, more so than he's like a threat to do anything. So I think he'll get like his 200 yards rushing again. I think he'll get like his 75 yards receiving, probably like his first touchdown ever in the NFL. So I like Blake Corum, but I am not super high on him and for where he is and what he does right now, if that makes sense. So I do like him though. 71 nomination, $8. So 171 nomination, $8, Deebo Samuel. So Deebo's tough. Like, he was super versatile. I remember he had like 50 catches and like over 30 receptions, if I want to remember correctly. I want to say 2 years ago. But like, I think he's been a top 25 receiver twice, but the other 4 years he wasn't even like in the top 35. So he's super volatile, and he's now in Washington playing like second banana to his draft teammate, Terry McLaurin. So he also gets nicked up and hurt a lot. Don't love that. I think he'll be better than he was last year just because he'll get fed the ball more and he'll have more of a role in Washington. He's actually going to be they're actually going to use him as a running back at some times. That's part of the reason why they trade Brian Robinson Jr. away. I just need some water. But yeah, another guy who I'm just kind of like, I'd prefer to have him on my bench, just kind of see what his role is, see how much they use him, than to start him, because I don't really know what to make of him. I don't think he's going to be a top 20-ish receiver, just because I think there's a lot of, it's the Jaden Daniels show, and I think it's the Terry McLaurin show. This is not the Bengals offense, and he is not T. Higgins. So they're not pass happy. They're kind of balanced, and even unless they use him at running back more than I think they're going to, I think, gosh, last year he might have gotten like a little under 50 carries. I think he's going to get less than that in Washington, but still be a threat. But it's still just like, it's not great. I like Deebo. I just don't really want Debo as a starter because I kind of want to see what I got. So we'll say like 900 yards receiving. We'll say like another 100 yards rushing. And we'll say like 7 touchdowns between the two. So he's a good player, but I'm just very hesitant to trust him. He just doesn't seem... He's always on the he's always at the cusp of a breakout. And then it just, something happens, something goes wrong. He gets injured, he gets nicked up, something. But you're kind of just hoping he brings back the magic from 2 years ago. I just would have preferred, I guess, someone with a little more upside than this. I definitely would have preferred someone with more upside than Andrews. 186, $4, Justice Hill. Super easy one. He's back in year 6 in Baltimore. He is the handcuff to Derrick Henry. He's not much of a rusher like Henry is, but he's the complement to him because he plays over 40 snaps because he is the third down back. So he catches the ball quite a bit. I think he got over 40 receptions last year. I think he'll still get his 4 touchdowns. I think he'll still get his 200 yards rushing. I think he'll still get over 300 yards receiving. And when Henry's out, he will be the main auxiliary piece in the backfield who touches the ball. So, I understand it. It makes sense. $4 is a little high for a handcuff, but I can't knock it, even with Henry's injury history being essentially like almost a non-factor. 188 overall, $2, Colson Loveland. Okay. So, I think you're just kind of like reaching at this point, trying to like go back to the well that's been good to you of rookie tight ends. Like, you found Sam Laporta, you won a title last year, you found Brock Bowers. So this year we're just going Colson Loveland, and he was the first tight end picked in the draft. He's only 21, he's out of Michigan. He's one of the youngest players in the league. It is difficult for me to see a way where he's like the number 1 tight end. I think Loveland's actually, his numbers will be exceedingly similar to Andrews, which is to say they'll be essentially bench players. I think they'll both be around 650 yards. I think they'll both be around like 5 to 7 touchdowns. I like the price on him in comparison to Andrews, because Andrews is going to do all that and basically be miscast as a startable player, and we know that he's not. The same way I don't think Colson Loveland is not a startable player. I know you're trying again. You're trying to catch lightning in a bottle for a third time, but I just don't know if I really would have gone this route. I don't know if waiting on rookies just because of rookies is like the best strategy rather than like seeing what else might be out there. I mentioned Jerry Jeudy was a top 15 wide receiver last year, and he went for $8. And yeah, we spent $4. We spent half that on Colson. No, we spent $2 on Colson Loveland, so we didn't spend much. But it's still just like there's a lot of mouths to feed in Chicago. There's DJ Moore. There's Roma Dunze. They just brought in Luther Burden III. They also still have Cole Kmet. Obviously, DeAndre Swift. Whatever happens with that situation. I think Loveland can be good. I just don't think they're going to build an offense around him with Caleb Williams. And Caleb isn't exactly known for getting his tight ends involved at any point in time in his career. So, yeah, not super in love with this pick, even if it's cheap. Not sure about the upside. I feel kind of the same way about your 190 nomination, $7. So Deebo Samuel and this guy were basically where you use the last bit of your money in the draft on, and this is Keon Coleman. So I've said before, rookies hit the ground running. Running backs hit the ground running as rookies. Quarterbacks usually is the third-year leap. For wide receivers, it's year 2. And that is what I assume you're thinking of with Keon Coleman, who, frankly, was not great last year. His comp was Kelvin Benjamin, and he was essentially Kelvin Benjamin. He did miss some games because of his wrist injury, but even when he came back, he wasn't great. Yeah, he's just a big, tall receiver they're kind of like using for jump balls deep in the route. Or if Josh Allen gets in trouble and they can't find Shakir and they can't find Palmer to get open, they would trust Coleman. I don't really trust Keon Coleman. I think he's okay. I think Buffalo kind of miffed trading away Stephon Diggs. I think Coleman is just tall, and he doesn't really have much of a route tree, and he doesn't really have much talent from a speed perspective, and he doesn't have a great precision route running. So I'm not really sure he has a superpower. In other words, he's just kind of like a tall guy. I guess his superpower is tall, but yeah, for $7, you're kind of waiting on him, and I just kind of watched him go by, and I was just like, meh. I mean, I would have rather have gotten, I'd rather have gotten DJ Moore, who went for the same amount of money. I might have even been willing to roll the dice on Rashee Rice, or yeah, Jalen Warren only went for $7. Michael Pittman Jr. went for $5. I just don't. Coleman's got to show me something, because even in college at FSU, he just showed me he was tall. He didn't show me incredible athletic gifts or the ability to get open. He just would just see ball, jump ball, and go get it. So spending $7 on that means he's a starter for you, and I don't love that either. $2, $197 overall, Jaden Blue. So he was taken in the 5th round, I want to say, this year out of Texas. He was relatively effective, but they didn't use him a whole lot just because he's been the second banana to guys on his own team. And he's had fumbling issues, which is an even bigger thing, which is probably why they don't trust him, which is probably why both Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, are on the Cowboys. So he might get a chance later on, and if he's the number 2 back, then he's worth it. So you can afford to be kind of patient with him, but I just don't love him from a talent perspective. I think he's a good player, but in the meantime, I'm just going to put $400 rushing, maybe $100 yards receiving, and 4 touchdowns. So I like Jaden Blue. I think he's got some upside. I think he's in the wrong situation, and I'm not really sure for your team he was a great addition. Your last 2 picks you got rid of. So you got rid of Dylan Sampson at 203, and then at 224 you got rid of Cam Ward. So let's just kind of go through it. So we got rid of Cam Ward for Amari Cooper. I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess having a second quarterback doesn't make sense to me. So in that sense, I'm happy we picked up something of value that could possibly help us. I just don't know Amari Cooper is that person to help us. He wasn't great in Cleveland. He got traded to Buffalo more on his name, and some games he was good. I think he had 3 or 4 really good games, or 3 or 4 good games, not really good, but good games. And then he had 5 bad games where he scored under 8 points a game. So, yeah. I like Amari. I think he has talent, but considering the low amount of money he got guaranteed, considering the fact that he doesn't really know the playbook and he's being brought in late, I don't think he has much of a role on the Raiders other than to kind of maybe be the quasi-sage number 2 and help bring along the young guys like Thornton on Stephen's team. So I like him, but I don't love him, and I don't love the pickup because I don't really need a second quarterback, so I guess it's fine, but I'm still just I'd rather have some of the other players on free agency than Amari Cooper, especially considering our running back situation. But I digress. Oh. So 203, $1 Dylan Sampson, who was splitting carries in Cleveland, and we trade him out for Ollie Gordon. Ollie's probably the only, other than the handcuffs, the only bench guy that I actually like. 2 years ago, I thought he was the best running back in college football. He won the Doak Walker Award as the best running back in the nation. He led the nation in rushing with over 1,700 yards. And then he came back last year. He got arrested in the offseason for a DUI, and Oklahoma State had one of its worst seasons ever. And he fell all the way to the 6th round consequently because of it. Even though he is got great traits. He's 6'1", 226, and has a 80-inch broad jump, which is just monstrous. So you're hoping that he can get pushed by someone younger, and I guess that's why they brought in who they brought in. I like Ollie Gordon. I just think Achane's got all the smoke. But if something were to happen to him, then it'd be Gordon's job. So I kind of get it. I like him taking the risk on that just with Achane's injury history more than anything else. So what do you think of Mac's team? Why is he 10th? Again. Well, the thing is, essentially the way I look at it is I like Henry. I like Kyron Williams. I think McConkey's quality. And I think McCarthy is like a good player. Genuinely, I think he's a good quarterback. The issue kind of runs into, I don't like anything else on the team. Debo is kind of coming off an injury, kind of just okay. Keon Coleman didn't have 30 catches last year. Mark Andrews had under 70 catches last year. Corum is a handcuff. Hill's a handcuff. Loveland's in a loaded offense. Blue's in a bad offensive line, and he's the third-string running back. Amari Cooper signed late for nothing. And then we got Ollie Gordon, who might get a shot if Achane gets hurt. There's just a lot of ifs. I would have preferred getting like a $3 Jawan Jennings, an $8 Jerry Jeudy, a $5 Khalil Shakir, a $7 Roma Dunze. There was a ton of back-end, like, veteran guys, young guys, breakout guys, coming off injury guys. Chris Godwin went for $5. Brandon Ayuk went for $2. Like, a lot of guys with a lot of potential. And we just took kind of like floor guys. Like, I consider Derrick Henry and Vlad McConkey and Kyron Williams to be floor guys. I know they're all going to get, like, McConkey's going to get his 100 catches. Henry's going to get his, like, 16 touchdowns. Kyron's going to get, like, his 14 touchdowns. But there's no real, like, at least on anywhere else on the roster outside of Gordon where I'm just like, oh, man, that guy could push to be one of the best in the league. Like, I don't think Debo's going to have a top 20 receiving season. I definitely don't think Keon Coleman or Andrews are going to. I think Loveland's kind of lucky to be on your squad. I think Amari Cooper is halfway out of the league. I think Jaden Blue's okay. You know, he's got more talent than Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, but that's not saying a whole lot. So your draft just, to me, just felt like almost like incomplete, because it's just like quality guys that don't really like get me where I need to go. And I just felt like you kind of fell into your old habits of just kind of just like being very safe. Like, these are very safe selections. Like, Debo will get his 70 receptions. Mark Andrews will be a part of the Baltimore offense. Loveland might be a red zone target. Blue is the most talented guy and maybe has some upside and will push for later in the draft. But it was just a lot of floor, a lot of safe. And if I'm going to pick a safe floor team, I'm going to pick Brian's team, which I just think has, like, guys with higher floors and more potential upside. So I just had a really hard time looking at your team and just being like, oh, this guy could be, like, one of the best in the league and could really elevate his game. Like, even I think I put Leyland at 8. Like, at least with Leyland, I feel like, okay, like, Mike Evans for $23, he could be a top 10 receiver again. Like Jalen Hurts could lead the league in rushing touchdowns. McCaffrey at $49 could be a top 3, top number 1 receiving and rushing running back in the league. There's the potential for more. There's the potential to push. And even though I mentioned like Stefan, who I put at like number 9, even then, I don't love Stefan's team because I feel like the receiving core is just like very oft injured. I think his floor is higher. I just trust A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, and Stephon Diggs more than I trust Mark Andrews, Deebo Samuel, and Keon Coleman. I feel like the Watt pick really set the tone for your draft, and from there, it just kind of got away from you. Because there was a point in that draft where you had the most money of anybody left, and it just kind of got like, I'm going to spend like $8 on Deebo, and I'm going to spend another $7 on Keon Coleman. And I'm just like, well, okay. But, I mean, heck, I got Chris Olave for like $3, and I don't think Olave's great, but, you know, he's got something. Or like, Brian took, I mentioned Juwan Jennings went for $3, Najee Harris for $1, Matthew Golden went for like $7, but like, you know, you didn't take very many upside guys. I guess the only upsides realistically at this point, kind of Blue, Gordon, maybe, definitely McCarthy, and I guess maybe Coleman, just because he's got to be better than what he was last year, which was just not. He was like Traylon Burks-esque last year. That's what I compare him to. That's how low my expectations are for Keon Coleman. And to spend $7 on somebody who doesn't get 30 receptions is just, even if I think he's got talent, that's a lot. I just don't feel great about the draft at all. I think you'll go places because Henry and Williams will take you there. I think you got a good shot at the playoffs. I just really wonder if maybe you're falling in your old habits, maybe you didn't do as much research as you should have done, maybe the draft got away from you. I don't really know. It just seemed like you weren't. I mean, I know you got stuff going on in your own life too, so you could be distracted. I don't feel as great about your draft as I do some of the other teams, a lot of the other teams, where I can just be like, I'm not really sure if I agree with that. Like, I don't really think I agree with the way Ryan's draft went. But I understand what he was doing, and I understand it's like, okay, I could see like a way, I could see in what world this would work out, and you're like, you hold a title at the end of the year. You have a really narrow path of you winning a title. It's just very difficult for me to see, because basically everything has to be like Henry and Kyron and McConkey have to be exactly what they were last year. And I think last year they were all essentially at their apex, and I don't know if they can do that again. Like, it's hard to ask Henry to be like close to a 2,000-yard rusher 2 years in a row, no matter how good he is. So I guess you're really relying on McCarthy to like become something, because if you have to go find a quarterback, that's just another thing you're going to have to fill. So yeah, I don't feel great about the team. That's why I put you at 10th. I think you probably got a good shot at the playoffs just because, again, the running backs will carry you there. But I just had a really tough time feeling great about your team the more I looked at it. So that's where you are, Mackenzie. Sorry about that. I know that's not exactly what you wanted to hear. But, hey, you proved me wrong.